Good afternoon, good morning, depending where you are in the world. Really pleased you could join us today for our webinar. We'll be talking today about why data fluency is costing you and how you can build a team and a function and a workforce that is future ready with data and AI literacy. Couple minutes worth of housekeeping, just as people still join us and get into the room. I'm sure everyone's really familiar with Teams webinars and the different buttons and console that you've got to play with there. You'll see everybody's on mute for audio purposes, but there is, if you could just move the slide on for me, Lou, please. But there is a Q&A function for you. Please do. Perfect, thank you. But there is a Q&A for you to pop any questions in. We do have an Ask Me Anything slot at the end of our hour today. So keep the questions coming and we will get through as many as possible at the end. And if you've got any comments, want to share anything with us as we go through the presentation today, feel free to do so. Would be really lovely to hear where you're all dialing in from. I'm in a very cold, very grey Nottingham today. Let us know where you are. We'd love to hear from you. You've got me, Sophie, moderating today, taking you through the housekeeping, and we've got two brilliant presenters talking about their experience in data and AI literacy. So we've got Lou Hutchins, who is Director of Data Culture here at Cynozure, and Thomas Musson, Head of Data at the RNA currently. I'm very pleased to hand over to them in just a few minutes' time. We've got a wealth of experience in this area. I know that some of you will have been along to Cynozure events already in the past. It's great to see you again. If this is your first time joining a Cynozure webinar, a little bit of info about us is that we are a data and analytics strategy company. We help organisations from all different types of industry to reach their data potential, whether that's in the realm of data culture, strategy, AI, platforming, engineering, analytics, full breadth of a data journey. Today, of course, we're talking specifically about data culture and data literacy. But for those of you who are new to Cynozure, we have got a full breadth of services that we can help you with wherever you are on your data journey. More on that at the end. So Lou and Thomas will be talking about their experience today, drawing down on experiences across various roles that they've had across different sectors. Cynozure have worked with global brands and organisations in lots of different types of industries. A few of them are on the screen now. We'll be using that experience and that cross-industry experience to talk about what works really well in data and AI literacy today. So without further ado, I'll wrap up the housekeeping and hand over to Lou. Thank you very much, Lou. Looking forward to the presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sophie, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. I'm Lou Hutchins. As Soph said, I am the Director of Data Culture at Cynozure. Prior to being a data consultant, I spent 16.5 years at Marks & Spencer in various senior customer-centric roles, more latterly heading up loyalty, CRM and data capabilities, specifically in the customer space. And I have a real passion for helping organisations unlock the value of their data. And for me, that starts with ensuring you're taking every single person on the journey of what data means within your business. And so today we're really going to be focusing in on what data culture means and actually how you unlock the value of AI within that, which of course has become a hot topic over the last year. And ultimately, what are the top tips and ways in which we think about culture at Cynozure? And I'm delighted to say I'm joined today by Thomas Musson, who I've had the pleasure of working with over the last few years in a number of different organisations. But I think for us, there's a real opportunity here as well to share with you some of the examples of where data culture is being put into practice in a large-scale organisation. I'm hoping throughout this presentation, it might get you thinking about some questions you have around data culture. And so please feel free to use that Q&A button to start thinking about those questions. And so hopefully I'll do a great job of like pulling all that information over to us at the end of the presentation. So we're going to spend around 40 minutes having a fairly informal chat about data culture. And there's a couple of things that we wanted to cover off. One, it's a big word. So what do we actually mean by data culture? What do we mean by data and AI fluency? You'll often hear the term data literacy mentioned. In fact, it's in my job title, but it's a word that sometimes jars with people. And so thinking about driving data confidence and data fluency is how we tend to position it at Cynozure. We'll talk about why we believe this to be such an important business skill and what we're seeing in terms of the macro views of data capabilities and why they're so important to businesses in building future growth and capability. We'll talk about the benefits that we believe having a data culture has. We'll also bring to life our CLEAR framework, which really identifies for us what are the components you need to be thinking about when you're thinking about building a data culture and how you'll really drive a transformation through it. We're then going to regroup with Thomas on the RNA's journey and give some insights into the types of things that they're doing to move their data culture forward. And we'll talk about the top tips and things that you should take away from the conversation that may help you with addressing the culture within your own organization. And then how do you measure it? How do you see that shift in capability? Finally, ending with a Q&A where you can ask us anything around this space. Equally, I would say, if there are things that you would want to discuss offline, I'm more than happy to have that conversation. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, but do feel free to reach out to me and link in with me. I'm very happy to have a chat always about data culture. So let's start with how we define it. Well, ultimately, in order to really derive the value from your data, being data and AI fluent is, in our minds, doing the following. It's the ability to read data, really understand your data, create and communicate data as information. And so it's that important storytell bit. How do you really drive action? How do you really drive action out of that insight and ensure that you've got a clear story to tell with your data that ultimately is driving data-led decisions? Alongside that, where relevant, how do you start to use AI? And we'll talk a little bit about that being a subject for some organizations that is causing concern, causing panic. How do you adapt to that change? Where do you really start to identify how AI can help your organization? And most importantly, from our perspective, making sure you've got the right prompt engineering capability to get the best out of your AI. So we're going to cover some of that stuff and break down the logic behind these definitions. And we're not alone in thinking that data culture is incredibly important. And in fact, the UK government has reported that data-driven companies are 10% more productive. And not only that, but the data skills is a demand in the job market that's growing at a 50% faster rate than any other job in market. And so what it's really kind of calling out here is that having that data capability within your organization is going to be essential for competitiveness and innovation going forward. And it's recognized that this is a skill that every single organization in some shape, form or capacity is needed in order to really drive commercial growth and in order to ensure that your business is still here in the next 5 to 10 years. So it is really recognized as a skill set that ongoing is needed in all organizations. And ultimately, alongside that, we really do see tangible business benefits by having a really compelling data culture. So those that have one and really understand the role that data plays within their organization have 50% more likely to exceed in their revenue goals. They're 88% reported improvement in their operational efficiency, 33% better at launching new products and innovation because they have that data, they have that insight to know where to play, how to play and who to play with. 75% increase in marketing return on investments through personalization and relevance. And this is an area that I spent years in before coming over to Cynozure. And that CRM and loyalty space where you're really driving that customer lifetime value is absolutely a key differentiator within business today. But not only that, By having the right data capabilities, you can see a 4% improvement in your productivity of your employees. So there is a huge opportunity in this space, and the results speak for itself. So typically, those organizations that really invest in that data culture see significant improvements across their organization through tangible benefits. And whether that's that they're 6% more profitable, 5% more productive in improved decision making. And this is something we spend a lot of time in organizations talking about. Moving away from that gut feel, we've always done it this way, we know the answer, to how do you start to use those data points to really shape your strategic decision making. And those that do, and those that are brave to kind of change the way that they think and react to data points, drive better returns on investment. We see increased revenue and profitability, 58% more likely to achieve your revenue goals if you're thinking with a data-led mindset. And really, that starts with the whole organization knowing the role they play in acquiring those data points in the first place. And we'll talk a little bit about the data value chain later, but quite often when we go into organizations, there's sometimes this mindset that data is a job and a role that sits in a team over here, rather than everyone thinking about the role that they play within the data space. We see 88% of businesses that embrace that data culture show higher operational efficiencies. Again, having those data points about the way that you work, how you work, driving better automation is all about improving the efficiency in the way that you operate. And finally, we also see that those that really focus in on their data management can improve processes, are 66% more likely to avoid compliance issues, and also see reduced costs of up to 20%. So there is clearly tangible benefits by having the right data outlooks. And I'm sure anyone dialing in today knows this stuff. But if you're in a place where you're trying to educate your organization around why this stuff matters, these might be some really tangible points that you can bring to life. So we're going to take a moment just to think about how you really address a data culture. And with every transformation that you make in your business, the truth of it is it's not a one size fits all. And so we're going to walk through the process of how we think about driving a data culture change. What are the areas that you should focus in on? And we'll bring to life by those areas some top tips and ways in which you can start to think about improving. So over the last 4 years, I've led a number of large-scale data strategies with all sorts of different sectors. And what's become more and more apparent is once we've got to the point of recognizing where you should change in the data space, there's then the question of how you do it. How do you influence? How do you get the right people on board? How do you get the organization to shift and pivot in the processes, the ways of working, the way they think about data in order to make sure that your data strategy is effective? And so we came up with a clear framework to really bring that to life. And that very much starts with how you build your communication plan. Now, typically, when we go into organizations, you'll have individual key stakeholders who really understand the importance of data, but you may also have some that just don't. So first and foremost, it's about identifying the right communication strategy to land your messages. And we start with creating a clear, tailored plan. And this is where one size doesn't fit all, because within this plan, you've got to think about who are your stakeholders? Who's an enabler? Who's a hinderer? Who has high influence? Who has high influence, but also low buy-in? And then work out how you're going to get all of those key stakeholders bought into the importance of data. And the truth of it is that answer is going to be different for every single directorate within the organization and probably every key leader. Because the way in which you land a transformation is by being clear on what does it mean to me? Where's the value add for me to care? And what do I need to do differently to succeed and support you in your vision? And so that clear communication plan is all about mapping all of that out and then identifying the right way to have those communication conversations. And it may be that if it's mass communication, you're doing that via your intranet, you're doing that by an internal newsletter. It might be these need to be face-to-face, one-to-one sessions. It might mean that they need to be workshops, but identifying the sweet spot of how you're going to get the organisation to move with you and understand the importance of why data transformation is so important. This is about enhancing understanding across the organisation. So start with a communication plan, start with a strategy that says, this is who I need to speak to, this is how I'm going to speak to them, and this is what I'm going to speak to them about. And always think about the value add for that end stakeholder. The next thing is about lead, and this is about setting the tone. Ultimately, as a leader within data, you want to be clear on the vision and clear of the relevance of data within your organisation. But you also want to be able to ensure that that message is bought into at an exec level. Now, the sweet spot for me is if in your business strategy, you can pull out that data is a key strategic enabler to delivering that business strategy. Because ultimately, from our perspective, we don't like writing data strategies that are standalone. What we believe in is that your data strategy should ladder back up into your business strategy and ensure that it's driving the business strategic objectives and helping to deliver against that, so that it's really underpinning what the business is trying to do at a macro level. And from our perspective, getting your board to really understand the power that data has as being a key lever to that, a key asset to delivering against your business strategy is a complete win. So this is about setting the vision, setting the tone, being the voice of change. It's about identifying those stakeholders that get it, that you want on board your bus, that are going to help you lead the message and building that community spirit. It's about being brave, finding that network of individuals that support the message. And it's also about identifying how AI can really drive the confidence and value of change and ensuring that people really do get where that opportunity is. Now, you're going to hear me talk about AI today, but the real passion play to getting the value of AI right is by being really clear about how you use it in your business, why you use it in your business, being clear on how it can help drive efficiencies. And the only way you can get the best out of AI is by ensuring that your data capabilities are right, the quality of the data is right, and that people understand the role they have within data management, because data management is the key to unlocking the value of AI. And the only reason you get data management right is when the organization culturally understands the importance of data, why the input of data, the management of data at source is so important. So all these things ladder back to mindset, ways of working, and buy-in. So that set the tone is all about ensuring that you're growing your influence across the organization and you're clear on the role that data plays. The third bit, which is often the bit that most people think of when they think of data culture, is education. Now, it's true that often we go into organizations and there is a real mixed capability of what people understand around data and the way that they're using data within their section of the organization, within their directorate. And that education piece is really important. But I don't personally believe that you can just educate an organization and hope your data culture is magically there. You will need all of these component parts to be in place. But education is key, and making sure that you are investing in people's understanding around data is really, really important to make sure that people have had the opportunity to upskill in the right way. And so a key role to do here is to identify where are the skill gaps? How do people feel about data today? Is there a level of data confidence? And you will know culturally in an organization. One that's really data-led is making really clear data-led decisions, probably had 5 to 6 killer KPIs that they're going after. It's really clear on the objectives and the use cases of where data can help. Those that aren't quite in that data culture space may be still looking at 100 KPIs and not quite sure where they should focus their time or energy, or not quite sure on the levers they can pull. And actually, people in the organisation are still making decisions by gut feel. So typically when we go in, we can see where the challenges are, but making sure that you invest in the learning capabilities of individuals and identifying that by persona, because again, one size does not fit all, unfortunately, with data education. There's going to be people in the data space that need specific skill set training to really grow within the data career paths. And there'll be people that are using data in their day-to-day role, and their needs around learning will be very, very different. So being clear on the learning journeys for each persona in your organization is key. Maybe maximizing L&D budgets if you have them, to ensure that you're upskilling the organization so it's fit for the future, and ensuring that you're promoting data and AI literacy and skills development across teams. So there is an expectation that everybody needs to go on this journey. And we spend a lot of time in different organizations working more predominantly with the business side of the organization to get those skills up to scratch. So this is all about improving the integrity of the data and AI value chain. And when we talk about the data value chain, it's the fact that every single role within an organization has a part to play in the quality of the data, in the way that data is thought about, in the way that data is treated, i.e. it should be treated as an asset within your organization, and the way that it's used to drive decisions. And helping everyone along that journey is key to ensuring you drive that right mindset. The fourth element is act. Sometimes when we go into organizations, we can see that there does need to be an investment in data capabilities, but quite often putting a big number in front of that is not tangible and actually puts your senior level of an organization off. And we firmly believe at Cynozure that you can iterate what you do. And actually, when we speak to Thomas later, I think he's got some great examples of where we've been really nimble and agile, and we've iterated and proved value over time. And that's something we really advocate for at Cynozure. Find your small wins, show the art of the possible. Give people something to cling on to understand the real value of data without spending huge amounts of money in building large-scale platforms that ingest all of the data straight away. Think about iteratively building these things out. When we spend time with organizations, we typically identify what is that sweet spot, what's that lighthouse use case that's going to show value quickly. It's a low-hanging fruit opportunity. We can be nimble. We can be creative with how we produce an answer, but really give insight into the art of the possible. And so not everything needs to be a large scale program around data. Be nimble, be agile, iterate. And I think for us, that ability to act and show a little bit of value can really impact a data culture, because from that you can really start to storytell and broaden out the understanding across the organization around what it means to be truly data-led. And of course, there are absolute ways in which you can start to leverage your AI capabilities as well within that to uncover new insights and efficiencies and demonstrate where there's tangible benefits as well. So working smarter, working nimble, working agile is an important part of building that culture out. And so this is all about enabling innovation and enabling that out-of-box thinking. It doesn't need to be big waterfall projects within data. It can be short, sharp, sweet, little moments in time that really prove value. And finally, relate. Well, this is all about getting clear on the operating model. We've talked about the fact that the data value chain includes all parts of an organization, being really clear on that RACI, being really clear on the relationships and interplays between teams, between departments to get the best out of your data, and ensuring that you're building a community of data-minded colleagues. And that starts with really understanding in that communication space who as a stakeholder is an advocate, an enabler of driving data change. It also is about how do you build your community outside of your organization. And we have great ways in which you can do that with Cynozure, whether it's via our CDO hub or whether it's by connecting us and connecting with us and connecting the dots. But ultimately, finding your people as is an important part of driving that data culture, and ensuring that you have a bit of fun with it. So I would say that Relate for me is also about creatively working together and exploring the art of the possible and having a little bit of fun. It doesn't need to be serious. We have some really great products that we offer that bring teams together to really understand the art of the possible with their data. And I think, you know, the more you can explore together, test together, innovate together, the more important that is to your organization in the way that you work around data, the more you're going to unlock a healthier, happier culture around data. So building a data excellent community is that final part in Relay. And that is all about people being really clear on the value of the data team and how it operates with the rest of the organization. So when we think about culture, it's so much broader than just an education program and a tick in the box exercise. It's about really thinking about how you galvanize your business around data and get them to care about the bits that matter to them. And ultimately, it's about solving business challenges, so you're adding true value back in. So that kind of shares with you a little bit about the way that we think about data culture and how we tackle it. And we spend a lot of time with organizations leaning in on all these different areas to see where they are. And that might be something you want to do off the back of this call, is kind of take a moment and say, right, okay, if this is the framework that Cynozure is using, where is my organization across these 5 areas today? What are the jobs to be done? And that can be a really interesting kind of kickoff point for you if you're thinking that you need to do something to move your data culture forward. So with that in mind, I'm going to bring Thomas into the conversation now to have a little bit of a chat with me around the role of data at the RNA and the journey that you guys have been on. So, hey, Thomas, come into the conversation. Could you start a little bit? So I've worked with you for a number of years. Could you share a little bit about your journey into data and the career you've had to date? That would be a really nice starting point, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. Yeah, bringing me in at 28 minutes is probably a record for how quiet I've been on a call in my career. So that gives you a little bit of insight. But yeah, no, Thomas, I'm the head of data at the RNA, and I've been there for 2 years now. Had the pleasure of working with Lou before at UNICEF as well. I'm quite passionate about data literacy because I see myself as a product of data literacy. I was from a non-technical background. I was a sales manager. They asked some very awkward reporting, salesy type questions of my then head of BI and MI, and did that so often that he kind of offered me a job if I could learn SQL. And so I often think about data literacy as closing that gap between people that make business decisions and your kind of data team. And I was the kind of person at STA Travel actually who was the living embodiment of that. And so and yeah, that's my background and my story and why I care so much about the subject, I guess.
I love that. And so you've been at the RNA for a while now, and I know that we're doing lots of exciting things with you guys, including kind of supporting on the technical side. We've been building a platform with you. We've been iterating on that. We've been doing that in a really agile way, slowly over time, building capability, but proving value quickly. And I think from my perspective, what's always been great is we've always talked alongside that of the storytell piece and how we get people on board the bus of data and how we take people on that journey. And do you just want to share a little bit about that data evolution at the RNA and why you think that's so important?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important at the RNA. For those of you who don't know, we're the governing body of golf, or I guess a co-owner of golf, along with the USGA. And so if you think like the UEFA for football or something similar, we have a lot of experts that are, whether that's in equipment testing or the rules of golf or handicapping systems. There's a lot of expertise at the RNA built up over literally hundreds of years, I guess. And so figuring out how we can use the vast quantities of data that we would have access to, I guess, augment and improve that decision making, but equally how we take that expertise and notice patterns in data to turn individual experts into kind of organizational wisdom using technology and thing is a key challenge for the RNA, as I'm sure it is for a lot of organizations. Where we've worked together, Lou, and I think especially on the literacy side of things, I think the key thing, or the great thing that we did first, was focus on the data team first. It's all well and good to talk about literacy in terms of we're going to educate, we're going to teach the world how to be better with data, but actually where we started was really the culture of the team and getting that right, because it's where the two things meet in the middle is where the power was. So we spent quite a bit of time, didn't we, on focusing on what the team vision looks like, our kind of operating rules and our standards, and building that up.
Yeah, completely. And I think there's a real importance with starting with the data team. And I think, particularly your role was, you were the first in the RNA to hold the position in data. And I think there's then that moment in time of actually, what does this mean to the organization? What is our mission? Why do we exist? And how are we going to help? And how do we measure the success of that? And I think sometimes that's an important part. And I think the other thing that I reflect on with organizations across the whole is then that ability to story tell that out and bring your stakeholders on the journey of who you are, why you exist, and how you can help. That's really important. I think we spent quite a lot of time thinking about that communication strategy. What were the key messages we wanted to land, building a bit of content around that to kind of start telling that story. That felt really important. What do you think will be the from a data literacy perspective, what's the kind of RNA's vision? What do we think the impact of investing in that space is?
As I say, I think it is. I touched on it slightly before, but I think it is figuring out how we can turn the knowledge and the expertise of individuals that work in the organization and turning that into better decisions and better results for golf, better outcomes for golf. And I guess getting more collaborative with understanding the levers that we can pull as a kind of global golfing organization to get more people into golf, or have golf reflect, be more equitable, more accessible, more enjoyable, those kind of things. So I think we're tasked, I think we task ourselves with ensuring that golf is thriving in 50 years' time. I think data and technology have an opportunity to ensure that the RNA is thriving in 50 years' time. And that I see my job and the technology team that I'm a part of, that's kind of what we're here to do,
Yeah. Future-proofing the organization. And could you bring to life, for those that may not be close to golf, what kind of data do you have within the organization? It's a real mix, right?
Yeah, no, it is a mix, to be fair. So we, as well as the kind of governance of golf and the decision-making aspects of golf, we also put on the Open. And so there's a kind of marketing data set around that where we're selling tickets. So we've got people that want to come and watch, and we repurpose the funds to that to kind of grow the game of golf and commit a number of a set amount of numbers to doing that. And so we've got the marketing data sets, but we manage the rules of golf. People interact with an app so they can learn that. We kind of co-own the world handicapping system. So if you're a member of a club and you play competitively, golf has a handicapping system, so it kind of levels the playing field. So I could compete against you, Lou, and it would kind of level itself out. So my team is tasked with presenting up to committees that make decision on that, the kind of data and the insights. And you guys have helped us onboard something like 75, 80 million scores onto a new data platform that has really taken my team's work to a kind of scalable level. We also own the technology behind the world rankings and the algorithm that works out that. So, and we test between us and the USGA, we test every club, every ball that's used. So there's a huge opportunity of data, and it's really of the task that we have together. It's not just me, it's the organisation as well, is figuring out where to focus, what the priorities are, and how we're going to use that to make better, faster decisions.
Yeah, brilliant. One of the things that we've supported with, I think, very recently was coming to St Andrews, which was super good fun, and delivering some data, a data 101 engagement session with the tech team. I think for me that was really brilliant because it started to open up the dialogue of how data can be used, how it should be considered within the processes of project development, and also just getting people to lean in on the bits that maybe they felt less confident with. In general, what are the challenges that the RNA face in terms of data culture and ways of working? What are the things that you're leaning into and fixing and solving for?
Yeah, I don't think our challenges are unique, to be honest. I think broad understanding of, when you talk about data and AI fluency, it's understanding the concepts around data. So sometimes if you've not worked with a data team, you've not delivered a data product before, you've not been involved in software, or reporting tools, you don't know some of the concepts, even from a mathematical or statistical point of view. So those kind of broad data concepts, interacting with the systems as well, like those hook points between the business and either the data products that you own or even the team. So that's part of fluency for me, is the processes of how people work together, how the rubber meets the road of the decision. So how people can better evaluate data or reports and communicate with that. And then the final pillar for me would be the kind of ethical considerations. So whether that's privacy or whether that's kind of automated decision making, those four things for me are a challenge at the RNA, but they're a challenge everywhere, and they've been a challenge everywhere that I've worked. But I don't limit how I think about literacy, and how we've talked about literacy isn't limited to just, I'm going to just educate how everybody can be better. There's quite an ivory tower approach to that. It's thinking about all the moving parts and how, as an organization, we can get better, and equally how we can upskill people to be more effective in their roles.
Yeah, brilliant. And from your perspective, if we did a bit of horizon scanning, what do the next couple of years look like for the RNA if you get that data culture piece right? What would be different?
It's a really good question. I think we've done that kind of data 101 and introducing people to those kind of broad data concepts. That session went down really well, and I would love to get that in front of more people. On my plan for next year is to kind of find some easily gullible people to join me in a how to communicate better with data kind of course, in a kind of TED Talk style way. So talk them through how to create charts and visualizations and how to kind of present better with data. We've got a visualization style guide now, which we produced at the tail end of last year, and I want to proliferate that further so people can see what the look and feel of charts, should be, and how they and how they can interact with that. And then I guess we're thinking about things like Excel. Although if some people hate it, you're never going to get rid of it. So how can the data team help people work in Excel better? Do we have people that are interested in programming? Do we have people that are interested in statistics? These are kind of untapped things, but I would love to get the data team out there into a broader skills-based approach to just helping people out and solving problems. I think where I would also like to start, and where I've seen at UNICEF, for instance, the global division had a kind of data literacy drive. What they did was worked with the HR team to identify people who had maybe listed data or Excel or something on their personal development plans, and they built a cohort like that and started taking people through a literacy program. But equally, you could sign up to kind of volunteer to help somebody else if they needed help. So if I had done a degree in statistics, I could put myself on the list to say, hey, if you've got any questions about hypothesis testing, then I can spend an hour a week thing. So there's a lot of broad plans, but I think it's about trying things out, seeing what works, and working with the organization to find out where your need is. But yeah, 100%, I think if we can help people communicate better with data, and help people kind of interpret the outputs for the next kind of year or so, they would be some really good outcomes for the RNA for me.
Yeah, I really love that. So it's all about cross collaboration. It's all about partnership, working together. It's not about that ivory tower mentality, but it's about supporting and driving confidence across the whole organization and getting people really confident with that storytelling piece, which actually is something that comes up time and time again with organizations. That's an area that people do need that support with. It's the insight into the action. It's the so what. It's the how do we really influence with data. If you had some kind of guidance or advice for those listening on the call to kind of building their data culture, what might that look like? And sorry, you were about to build.
No. This is I was about to butt in and give you the answer to this question, and you've asked it and introduced it in a way.
That's what happens when you've worked together for so long.
and when you have manners and don't just talk across people. So sorry about that. For me, the key thing that made a difference in getting my head around was that data literacy is about, or data culture is not just about data literacy, it's about your team, your data team having business understanding, and your goal, your objective is to bring those two things closer together. So if I had a tip, it would be to really work on your internal culture and really have to make sure that your data team's culture is almost obsessed with understanding more about the business, because they're your biggest hook point into non-formal data literacy. So every time you have those conversations, every time you co-create something with the business, that is an opportunity for you to upskill and leave a kind of, it's cheesy, but a lasting impression of, oh, that's what data magic is all about, whether the product or the thing that you're working on is successful or not, people can still learn, and people can still kind of develop and want to come back again to deal with your team again. So that would be my tip, is to get your team on board with doing this by showing that they are obsessed with getting into the business, because that will help so much more from a place of trust, rather than just being this whole, I'm going to educate you on how to do data better. It softens the blow a bit, I think.
Yeah, love that. Great advice. Thank you, Thomas. I'm going to move us on to building a data-centric culture. And I think we've got kind of 4 ways in which we think about this. The first is being really clear on the purpose of data in your organization, and therefore the role that you as a data leader play in ensuring that that is understood by everybody. And I think if you do that, you start to be able to sell into the organization why data matters. So being clear on also how it helps you reach your destination. So when we were talking before about it being seen as a strategic enabler to delivering your business strategy, that's exactly what we mean by that. Secondly, identifying the why by business area. And when you're thinking about your communication strategy, this is getting to the sweet spot of why is that directorate going to care about data, what their role is to play in it, and what value add is it going to have by them operating differently or thinking differently about data. And so this is really about identifying the benefits by directorate. And I think that's a really important message. Like, the simplest way in which you tell a story, my favorite thing ever, is a bit of Simon Sinek. It's the why, how, what. And I always think about when you're trying to get a stakeholder bought in, thinking about the why it matters to them, how they need to operate differently, and how it's going to help them and how it's going to add value, and what you need them to do off the back of the conversation is a key way to kind of land a message. So getting clear on that why. I think the third one for us is really starting to build out the story that data is a team sport. We talk about this a lot at Cynozure. The reality of it is often when we go into organizations and we interview across the breadth of the organization, we will inevitably have some individuals that say, well, I don't know why you're interviewing me because I don't do anything with data. That's the data team over there. That's their job. And the truth of it is that's simply not true. Every single role across your organization touches, uses, consumes, creates data in some fashion. And so we really do believe that data is a team sport. And getting really clear across your organization of the role that everyone plays is important. And finally, it's about that storytelling piece. And I think, you know, Thomas alluded to this as well. This is really important, really being able to tell the impact of data on your business objectives, being able to tell the story of why the team in data work on the things that they work on, how you prioritize around that data and the value add it gives to your organization, and getting comfortable in those playbacks regularly across the organization really starts to paint the story of where data is driving the business forward. So if there were 4 kind of key takeaways from today's conversation alongside our framework, it would be focus on these 4 things. If you get these things right, you'll start to shift the dial. Finally, one of the things that we also speak about a lot is how do you even measure this stuff? And it's hard. So you may put 600 people through a data literacy program, and that's good. You're trying to drive the confidence and the capability. But it doesn't necessarily mean that by somebody attending a course, it's going to drive action. So what does good look like? Well, there are a series of ways in which you can assess where you are today and where you want to get to. One of the things we offer at Cynozure is a data culture pulse survey. So if you're wanting to understand how your business feels about data today, maybe talk to us about participating in this. But also, you'll know if your business starts to move away from kind of gut-led decision-making to data-led decision-making, and actually really starting to ask for data points to drive business strategic decisions. You'll start to be able to see where you might be able to automate and improve and drive efficiency savings in the way that you process, use data and operate around data today. And there should be a number associated to that. You could also start to think about how you're really measuring your KPIs across the business. That requires data, benchmarking, stretch targets, driving improvement, and seeing upticks in all those KPIs. We've talked about the fact that if you get that data culture right, you should see improvement in your customer experience. Therefore, you should see improvement in your ROI from a marketing perspective. You can see cost saving efficiencies, and you should be able to put a tangible number to that. So there are ways in which you can start to measure this stuff. And the same with cost saving efficiencies. If we think about the AI space, quite a lot of the hot topic of AI at the moment is how can it drive efficiencies in the way that we work? How can we work smarter because of AI? And I think what's interesting is we're having a lot of conversations in organizations at the moment where there's almost a nervousness about using generative AI. And actually, I think we're having the wrong debate because it's not going anywhere. It is part of our future, but it's about having clear guardrails, clear policies in how it's used, and identifying how it can free up time for more strategic thinking or harder tasks and help you with those smaller tasks that basically an admin that we just want to get off the list. And so again, how can AI support you with driving those efficiencies? And if you haven't listened to it, it might be worth going back and listening to last week's webinar where we talked about generative AI and the clear use cases for it. And finally, that you've got a data literacy reach within the organization by persona type. So you understand the skill sets required for every role within the organization, and you've got the right capabilities and training to support those individuals with getting to where they need to get to by persona. So there's some ways in which you can measure it as well. In terms of how we can help, we can help with any of the things that we've talked to today. So if we think back to the framework, we can help you with communication strategy, stakeholder mapping. We can help you with identifying leadership support, interim CDO support. We can help you with coaching. We can help you with team vision, mission, value statements so that you get your storytell clear. We can help you identify where the business use cases are across the organization to help you solve. We can also support with data literacy training. We were shortlisted for an award this year. We were in the top 3, and we're super proud of that for the work that we did with British Red Cross. We've got a wealth of workshops and training materials that we can support with. Or equally, if you just want to have a chat with someone and say, this stuff is hard, it's the hardest bit to move is people's mindset and culture. So I think, you know, absolutely, sometimes it's just good to have a coffee with someone and appreciate that this is probably one of the hardest bits to do. It's easy to buy tools. It's easy to kind of invest in some team capabilities within data. What's hard is getting the whole organization to change the way that they think, operate, and work. And ultimately, that's what data culture is all about. But I'm going to hand back over to Sophie for the final couple of minutes. And if there are any questions that we can answer, then we'd be happy to now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Thomas. Really, really interesting to hear. And you're obviously both so passionate about this topic, which really come through in the presentation today. We've had a couple questions come in, so I'm just going to take those in order if you're comfortable. One of the first ones that we had was referring to some of the stats around outcomes of doing a data fluency program like this. Were those all UK based, or are they global, do you know?
They were, and some of them were global actually. There was a mix in there, and I think the sources are in there, but there's a mix from McKinsey, Gartner. But ultimately, businesses in general that invest in these capabilities see significant upticks in terms of their commercial performance.
Brilliant. And then I'm just preempting the next one. If you're an organisation that hasn't started this journey yet, how do you begin to estimate the uplift for your organisation, which I'm thinking a lot of our data leaders will be wanting to do to kind of put a business case around something like this together?
I think if you are thinking about data culture, it really depends on where you are with your data strategy. So for me, in order to invest in your data culture and get an investment in this space, you have to be clear on the role that data plays with delivering your business strategy. And the first point I would start with is, have you got an organization that understands that data is a key enabler? And if you haven't, that's the job to be solved for first. So I would almost say, with everything we do within the data strategy and culture space, don't try and fix everything at once. Start with that. So where is your leadership team at a board level? Where's their mindset around data? Do they believe it to be a key enabler to delivering your business goals and outcomes? Start there. If you've got that bit right, then you can start to have a really robust conversation around, well, if we believe that data is a key strategic enabler, then actually we need to, as an organization, take everyone on the journey to be able to deliver that aim. So in its own right, it might not necessarily have to have key tangible deliverables around data culture. It's about what it does to help you deliver your business strategic objectives. So I'd always try and ladder it back up to that. I hope that's helpful.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think we've got time for one more. I think we have time. I'm going to go for it anyway. Do you have any guidance on the different learning pathways that would be appropriate for different personas in an organisation?
Yeah, we do. And I think it very much depends on the organisation. But typically what we have done is mapped out what are the kind of key components that a leader would need. What are the key components that you'd need by the typical directorates that you see within organizations, whether that's finance, whether that's, if you're somewhere in the retail space, it might be finance, it might be marketing, it might be buying and merchandising, it might be stores, and all of those will require different ones. So it very much depends on your organization. But what we typically do is come in, understand the roles within your organisation, and then we identify the right persona, capabilities and skill sets needed in data to be able to be successful.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for answering those. I know you never know what questions are going to come with an Ask Me Anything. So thank you very much for that. We are coming up to the hour. So I just want to say a massive thank you to you, Lou, for sharing your experience in this space, and to you, Thomas, as well, for talking us through your experience, having been on the receiving end of data fluency and now leading that as well in your role as data leader. Really interesting to hear both sides of that. And then a big thank you to everyone who has joined us on the session today. I really hope that you've got some takeaways and some value from it. As Lou said, if you'd like to connect with any of us or ask us any more questions, you are so welcome to do so, and we hope you do. The recording will be made available. Yeah, we would love to continue the conversation. I know lots of people are really passionate about this topic at the moment. So please do connect with us on LinkedIn. We will make this recording available in a few days' time. So if you do want to share that with your colleagues, again, you are extremely welcome to do so, and we'd encourage you to do so. And then one very last point from me. This is the second webinar in a series that we're running in the month of November. So if you found this useful, you might also be interested in coming along to 2 others that we're hosting in the next couple of weeks. The next one being Chaos to Clarity, Data Management and Why It Matters Now More Than Ever, which is next Thursday. And then also Creating Business Value with AI, sharing some real frameworks and lessons from the field, which is the last week of November. Hope you can join us for those. Thanks all for joining. Great to see you, and have a good evening. Hope to speak with you soon.
Thanks, guys. Hope to speak to you. Take care.